Hello friends, welcome to Joy of Life. So before we proceed with this episode, what I would like to tell you is that if you have not seen the system design introduction video wherein we have discussed about the architecture of this mini project that we are building, I would highly recommend you to check the same. I will leave a link to the description as well so that you can click, check the same and then get back onto the video. So yesterday we did something pretty interesting, right? We have extracted all the links from the URL, and now what we are going to do is we are going to post them back. We are creating a post endpoint and we are going to post them back into the same service over here, URL feeder service, which is taking a normal URL. We'll change this to a set of URL. Let's change this to URLs. Right, and this logic over here, it is for a single URL, so we are just going to loop through it and do nothing about it. So for now we'll just introduce a loop over here, and for sake of simplicity we'll just keep it the same way. So let's change this to capital L. Yeah, we will create a separate method over here. So a very similar method wherein we'll have a post mapping, and we will call this as a batch endpoint so that we can segregate between the two. Rest, mostly everything remains the same, so we are not going to send anything back. So we'll have submit batch URL, and again over here in the request body, what we'll do is we will take a set of URL over here, and let's call them URLs. Initialize this over here, and we are going to add the single URL that we have over here. That's all. So this will create a set for you, and it is going to pass on the set to the method. And for this method over here, it's both of them are going to call the same service, but we need to set a few parameters that we have been setting over here. So this URL ID and all these parameters that you see over here has to be done for the URLs as well. So we will iterate over these URLs and we'll do a for each, and what we are going to do is we are going to set the values over here. So what we are going to do is we are going to iterate over this, and for each of the elements we are setting all these three parameters just like this URL over here, no difference from the same. So now what we are going to do is we are going to do exactly the same thing that we have done for this save method over here. So we are going to do exactly the same thing, and we are going to pass the URLs over here. So this is the change we are going to do for our application over here in the URL resource. Now the other change remains in our HTML. That is, once we extract it, we need to post them back. So if you look now, what happens is that URL feeder takes this type, right, URL type. So we can have the similar class over here. So what we can do is we can take this model class that we have called URL, and we have a model package. So we'll do something similar with our HTML worker as well. So over here we'll come and create a package, and we'll call it model. And inside the model we are going to paste this URL class, so pretty much the same class, right? Few enhancements that you need to make over here, since we are not persisting this, nor do we have a JPA, so we are going to get rid of all these things. Right, we don't need this, and these are streaming over here. As you see, they are streaming just because we don't have Lombok. So what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead into the URL feeder service and get the dependency for Lombok, the same one that we have used. So I'm copying this from URL feeder service and adding it to the form of our HTML worker. So let's get it added just before JSON. Anywhere is fine though. So we'll re-import it quickly so that the errors are resolved. So you can see that it's downloading and doing all the required stuff, and now we go back, and entity is something that we don't need, so we can get rid of it. So we need the getters, setters and everything, and you can see that the problem is gone now, but we need to remove all this JPA dependencies or JPA import statement that we have. So let's get rid of them, and your class is fine, no more errors, right? We are good. So what we'll be doing over here is in the service, we're going to create a set of URL. So we are going to accumulate all the URLs and then make a batch request directly. We are going to create a hash set over here, and every time we get a URL, what we'll do is we'll add it to our URL. What we can leverage over here for this URL class is we can use the builder pattern so that we don't need to call the method separately. So URL builder.build we can directly do like this, and what we'll do is we'll set the URL, and we will set the, so let's get it into a string first. Here we'll call it path, and we will take this guy from here and put it here, and the URL we are going to put the path here. So what happens is when we exit the loop, we have a list of set of URLs, right? And we are going to send this list over to the URL feeder service, who's now taking a batch endpoint, right? So we are going to go ahead and get the retrofit2, this library over here. So this library will help us to make the request. So again, we are just taking this and putting it into our form file. So retrofit is the library that's responsible for sending the request, so we can build the request and we can send it in a much more modularized way rather than making a normal call and things like that. But what retrofit also needs along with the retrofit dependency is a converter. So it should be able to convert your object into a JSON object and send it, right, because we are accepting a JSON. So along with retrofit, what we need is a converter. So we are going to take a GSON converter over here. So let's go back and search for the same. So as you see, the very next link over here is the converter GSON, right? And it is from retrofit only. So you can see over here that it is from the retrofit only. So we are going to take this dependency as well, and we are going to put this dependency along with the retrofit dependency that we have just added. Okay, so we have two dependency to get this work done. So we have two dependencies over here. The first is the retrofit, which is the core of it, and the other is the converter. So once again, as you see over here, it's red. So what you need to do is you go to Maven and you just re-import, and you will soon see that it disappears. So once everything downloaded, you should see that it's gone, right? So it's gone now. So now we are going to use the retrofit library inside our URL processor. So how retrofit basically works is that you need to create interfaces, and for each of the interfaces we give all the required parameters through annotations and the method parameters and things like that. And what retrofit does is that it converts them into a request and actually hits the request, and we get the response based on that, right? So we will soon see how we build a retrofit client and how do we get things done over here. We will first add a configuration over here, com.joyoflife. So this configuration that we are doing over here is mainly for the URL. We don't want to hardcode our URL over here, so we will say that this is our URL feeder service base URL. Sorry, it won't be dot, it won't be dash, it will be dot. And over here we are going to specify the URL for our service. So 8085 will come here. So this is going to be our base path, right? So we will put a HTTP over here. So what we'll do is we'll create a Java class over here, and we'll call it as URL feeder service config. Okay, and this is also going to be one of my configuration class, and here what I'll do is we'll have the base URL for the URL feeder service. So we are going to add an annotation over here. So this will give me the base URL, and what we'll do is we'll also get we'll create a bean. So this bean is going to return me a retrofit client, right? So what I'll do over here, so I'll create a public method, and this is going to give me the retrofit. I'm going to call this method as get client, and what this will basically do is it will give me the client based on my configuration. So we are going to use a builder pattern over here to build it. So we need to set the base URL. Base URL we have just acquired over here. So we are going to pass this base URL, and we are going to add a converter factory to it. And the converter factory is nothing but our GSON factory that we have got. So we will put GSON converter factory dot create. So what this will do is it will attach a converter factory to the retrofit client, and this converter factory is going to get used when it's going to serialize my request before sending it, right? Okay, and the next thing that we'll have is a client. So client will be nothing but my HTTP client. So we are going to create a OK HTTP client, and we are going to use the builder pattern once again. We can directly do a builder over here. So this will create a client for me over here, and what it will do is it will use all the default value in order to use the client, and at the end we are going to build this and return back. Okay, sorry, this will be add converter factory, not okay. And here is my client that we have added all the things that we require over here. We missed the build method over here, so you need to put the build method because I'm calling a builder. So this is going to get returned when I call when I auto-add this retrofit. I should get this. So we'll see how this all happens. So what we are going to do quickly over here is in our class we are going to get a retrofit. So what will happen basically over here is when I call this retrofit, it will go ahead and inject, because I have a bean with that name. So it's going to go ahead and inject this bean that we have just created over here inside our URL processor over here, right? Next thing is that we need to create an interface also. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create some interfaces in a new package. We'll create a package over here and name it client. So these are our clients whom we are calling. So inside this client, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create an interface, not a class, keep in mind, we'll create an interface. So this interface is going to be for the URL feeder service only. And what we'll do in this interface is add those methods. We are going to call this method as batch publish, right? So this is going to be our method. Now we need to decorate this method with the parameters and whatever is required, right? So first thing I have to tell him that if you look at this batch over here, so the first thing that he'll notice is it's a post mapping, right? So we are going to tell retrofit that use a post method when you are sending this request. So what we'll do is we will add this annotation called post, and this is how retrofit will know that this is a post method. Okay, and the next thing is that he knows the base URL. URL is fine, we have already provided him that, and now I'm telling him to add /batch to it. And apart from that, what this endpoint takes is a body. So we, as you see over here, it takes a request body and it takes a set of URL, right? We need to define that as well. So over here, I'll just say @ body, and the body is nothing but a set of URL. So over here, he now knows that he need to make a post request with the batch endpoint appending to the base URL path, and he's going to set a body. And as you see that this body is a Java type, right? So what it will do is it will use the serializer that we have given him, right, during the configuration, and it's going to serialize, deserialize based on that serializer. From this retrofit class, what we can do is we can directly create over here, and over here what I'll do is I will pass him the interface that we have just created. So the name of that is URL feeder service dot class. So now he knows that he has created the instance and he has the class type, and now we can see over here I can directly call the batch publish over here and pass him the required parameters, and that's how he will take care of things now. and also we need to put a auto varying over here. So it should return a call basically. So call is nothing but the type, and we should specify the void over here. And now what we need to do is we need to execute this request over here. Okay, so now the request will be executed, and what it will return me is response. So and we are going to check if it is successful, we are good, and if it is not, then we need to log a error message. So what we'll do is we'll put the response code for now. So you can just do a code over here. So this will give you a response code. So this will now complete the call for you. So successful means it has to be 2xx. So if you check over here, it's successful method. So you'll see that it should be greater than equal to 200 and less than 300. So anything 2xx is good. And we have also changed our application properties. What we have said over here is, so here we have specified that we are going to get only the latest messages and not the messages that's been lying around over there. I'll log all these things that we have been logging for this guy over here, so we can get all these and put it over here as well. And along with that, since it's a new method, so we'll put a new message over here, request. So let's put batch request received. So just a simple log message. We wanted to see what's there. Okay, so I'll skip over the deployment part because you are already aware of it, and what we'll do is we'll straight away jump into running the code. So just to take you through the setup, database is clean, as you see, no records. URL feeder service is running healthy. HTML worker running, no problems. And we have the Postman open here as well. So we are going to send the request to the single endpoint of URL feeder service. It's going to post it to the Kafka topic. HTML worker is going to pick it up, extract all the URL, hit the batch endpoint of URL feeder service, and the flow will go on for quite a while, as expected, if everything goes right. So over here we are sending a request with stackoverflow.com, and it is supposed to get a lot of URLs out of it. So well, it has received over here, posted, he has received the batch endpoint, and you can see that both the applications are continuously extracting everything and working in a loop continuously, right? He's extracting, sending it back, and the chain is going on. Okay, so let it go on, and what we'll do is we'll take a quick peek at the database. So 196 rows, we can see that recursively it has picked up 196 rows, extracting URLs. 266 now. So every time you can understand what's going on. It's going on and on and on, right? So this is how our application works, right? This is the volume of work we are talking about, and you can see the amount of data that we are pulling in every second, right? We are processing so many requests, right? So I hope you got a fair idea of how to work with Retrofit and how our application works in real time. You can see that how our URL service is getting the data out from a single URL, and recursively the call is going on, right? The data is getting piled up over here. Again and again, when you query, you will see a huge volume of data getting added. So we are almost at the 1000 URL that we have processed in less than a minute, right? So I hope you have got some idea of this end-to-end project that we are running over here, right? So yeah, we are going to do a lot more exercise. We are going to figure out a lot more things, but I hope you are liking it so far. It would be great to know from you guys, what do you think of this application that we are building over here, right? So we just join a couple of endpoints and we can get the data flowing through the system, right? This is something really exciting, right? And over here in the database also, if you see that there are no duplicates, all the records are unique, and it's been flooded with data. So we have links from almost all the websites, and it can go on and on, right? So you can see that from a single URL how far we can go and get the data, right? So yeah, that's all from this video. Do let me know what do you think about this video, and soon we are going to explore a lot more detailed topic. We are going to introduce load balancer. We are going to introduce service registry. We are going to have a API gateway. We are going to put everything into place and understand them. So it's not required for a single system over here, but we will get the essence of everything that we use in a day-to-day life, right? So stay tuned for more, and soon we'll have a lot of new tutorials coming up. So yeah, that's all from this video. Stay safe, and bye bye for now. Take care.